Alright, part 2. Chain of custody is a list of everybody who has come into possession of an item of evidence. That's from the person who gathers the evidence at the crime scene, the person who analyzes the evidence in the crime lab, and the evidence clerk who takes care of it in the evidence room. Those are the three main types of people who are part of the chain of custody. Anybody in the courtroom is not. So judge, jury, lawyers are not part of the chain of custody. But in court, continuity of possession has to be established. Who came into contact with this evidence has to be accounted for. It's important to gather standard reference samples at the scene. It's physical evidence whose origin is known, or from suspects or from victims. Blood or hair from a suspect that can be compared to crime scene evidence. So I said that wrong. A standard reference sample is gathered from suspects, from victims, to compare with the evidence at the crime scene. Different kinds of evidence that need a standard reference samples include soil, blood, glass, hair, fibers, DNA. They need standards for comparison. Forensic pathology is something we've talked about before, investigation of death. An autopsy is the medical dissection and examination of a body in order to determine cause of death. After a body dies, there are three different things that can happen, different stages of death. So we have rigor mortis, which is the stiffness of death. Stiffening of body parts in the position of death occurs within the first 24 hours and then disappears within 36 hours. And then we have livor mortis, which is the settling of blood due to gravity in the areas of the body closest to the ground. It begins immediately on death and continues up to 12 hours. Algor mortis is loss of heat by a body. Beginning about an hour after death, the body loses heat by 1 to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour until the body reaches environmental temperature. So make sure you are familiar with this amount of temperature loss as you go through. This is forensic anthropology, the study of bones. Identification and examination of human skeletal remains. And then we have forensic entomology, which we've discussed already. The life cycle of the fly. How to determine the post-mortem interval or time of death. One more thing I would like to talk about here. I'm going to go back so I have some room on a blank slide. There we go. Different causes of death. When death investigation is happening, we have homicide. Oh, that's too big. Here, let's try this. Homicide. That's better. Suicide. Accidental. Natural. And undetermined. Really try and prevent the undetermined category, because obviously we want to figure out a cause of death. So these are the causes or manners of death. Make sure you keep those in mind.